You feel unwell, you're tired, confused, weak, and you notice that you're not the same as before. You even surprise yourself because at your age, it doesn't seem normal to feel this way. So you do what we've been taught to do. You go to the doctor, they take your blood, you wait a few days, and then you go back for your appointment. The medical doctor carefully looks at the test results, then looks back at you with a warm smile that is specifically meant to be very reassuring, and finally says to you, "Your test results are perfect." Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been given an explanation for that exhaustion? Or have you just been given a pat on the back along with a "just get some more rest"? It's stress. Slow down. What they're simply not telling you, and quite often it is because they have completely forgotten it themselves, is that if you were to wake up tomorrow morning with only half of your normal cellular voltage, you would not be suddenly struck by lightning or turn into stone. You would still get up and go to your work. You would still take the time to talk to your family and your friends, but very slowly you would be starting to lose the essence of yourself. Your decisions would be slower, your emotions would be duller, and your ability to understand the world would become clouded. And the most unsettling part is that, in fact, your chemical tests would still appear perfect. Why? It's very simple, because modern medicine is obsessed with molecules but has completely forgotten about electricity. Imagine you have the most expensive car in the world, a perfectly engineered and high-performance engine, the finest handcrafted leather seats you can possibly get, and the highest quality premium gasoline in the tank. But the battery is dead. What good is the engine to you? Absolutely nothing. It's just as if you had a pile of inert metal. Modern medicine tries to fix the car by changing the parts or adjusting the oil levels, in other words, the chemistry, when you and I both know that the real problem is that the car has no spark. There's no flow. We have built a society that is literally switched off. We live with brain fog, with a chronic fatigue that we accept as if it were normal, and with an anxiety that hums in the background, as if it were a poorly insulated wire. And the worst part is that we're told this is genetic. But that's not the case. Often it's simply that your electrical infrastructure is degraded. You're like a beautiful city whose wires are rusted. The lights flicker, the traffic lights fail, and chaos takes over the streets. Well, today we're going to try to break that paradigm. We're going to stop talking about biochemistry and start talking about biophysics. Because on this very day, you are not only going to gain a profound understanding of exactly why you have been missing that vital inner spark. I am also going to provide you with a comprehensive and powerful toolkit of strategies so that you can successfully re-electrify the magnificent cathedral of your own life. We're going down to the basement, we're going to check the wires, and we're going to restore the power to your life. To fully understand the exact reasons why your engine won't start today, we're going to travel all the way back in time to the year 1939 and step directly into a scientific research laboratory located in Plymouth, England. There, two men named Alan Hodgkin and Andrew Huxley discovered something that would earn them the Nobel Prize years later. They measured that a neuron at rest has a voltage of about minus 70 millivolts. And here we're going to pause for a moment, take a break, because I can imagine what you're thinking. If you've been following this series, you've heard me say quite a few times that the ideal state of health is around minus 90 millivolts. And now it turns out I'm telling you about minus 70 millivolts for the brain. And it doesn't end there. In a few minutes, I'll also tell you about Dr. Jerry Tennant, who will talk to you about minus 25 millivolts. So who's right Or why do these numbers seem to fluctuate? Well, let me clarify this for you, because this is where everything comes together. Think of your body as a high-precision electrical installation. Not all devices need the same voltage. First, there are the minus 90 millivolts, the master battery. This is the absolute pinnacle and gold standard. It is the energetic electrical charge of an exceptionally healthy, youthful, and naturally vibrant cell. It's the full reservoir we talked about when analyzing Ayurveda and biophysics. Then come the minus 70 millivolts, which act like the trigger for thought. The brain is a machine that needs speed. It operates at a slightly lower voltage, minus 70 millivolts. And not because it's in worse condition, but because it needs to be closer to the firing point. It's like a spring that's not fully compressed, so it can jump at lightning speed at the slightest thought. And then third, there's the Tennant scale, which ranges from minus 25 millivolts to minus 50 millivolts. And this is where Dr. Jerry Tennant comes in with a clinical perspective. He tells us that minus 25 millivolts is the minimum operating voltage, which is the threshold below which an organ stops functioning. Thank you. And it starts to get sick, and he gives us the key figure, minus 50 millivolts. According to Dr. Tennant, that's the turbo mode. It's the extra voltage your cells need to regenerate to make new parts. If you watched the previous episode about Michael Levin, you'll remember that he's the architect. Michael Levin has successfully discovered the biological software, those intricate electric fields that specifically tell cells exactly what shape they should take. It is very much like the detailed architectural blueprint of a grand cathedral. However, Dr. Jerry Tennant is the recognized leading expert in the physical hardware and the essential underlying power supply that makes it all function. Ultimately, it's useless for Levin to have the most brilliant blueprint to regenerate your liver or your skin if Tennant. At present, it is not possible to find a battery that is actually capable of delivering the minus 50 millivolts that are needed in order to successfully carry out that particular work. Levin provides the intelligence and Tennant provides the energy, and both agree on something fundamental: without conductors. At this moment, there is absolutely no electrical current present, and for that specific current to begin to flow properly, we really need to talk about the intricate network of wires and the dedicated operator who carefully maintains the constant pressure inside each individual cell. Now that we clearly understand exactly how much electrical voltage we actually need, the important question remains: who is responsible for maintaining that constant level of pressure? Because, thank you, your cells are not closed boxes. They are alive, they breathe, and they constantly exchange materials. And here, another true giant of the world of science appears: the Danish chemist Jens Christian Skoe. He was a dedicated man who spent many long years meticulously dissecting the tiny nerves of sea crabs in order to deeply understand exactly how the vital balance of ions was maintained within the cells, the electric charge. And he discovered something that will blow your mind. I've talked to you about it before, but now I'll explain how he arrived at it. He told us that in every cell we have something like a tireless nightclub bouncer who is always ready to go to work. It's called the Sodium-Potassium Pump. Do you remember we've talked about it? Well then, imagine your cell is the most exclusive nightclub in the world. Outside on the street, there's a crowd of noisy and rowdy people called Sodium. And inside in the club, we only want calm and sophisticated people called Potassium. And the bouncer, the Sodium-Potassium Pump, works 24 hours a day. First, he grabs 3 sodium people and throws them out onto the street, and in exchange only lets in 2 potassium people. Since he's kicking out more positive charge than he's letting in, what he's doing is creating an electrical void inside. And that void is what generates those minus 70 millivolts or minus 90 millivolts we talked about. It's ultimately what keeps the spring compressed. And listen closely to this fact because it's what explains your fatigue. This bouncer is incredibly rigorous and demanding, and he dedicates himself tirelessly to his duties. Pay close attention that he actually ends up consuming a staggering 40% of all the energy you produce, almost half of what you eat. Much of the air that you breathe is dedicated to keeping these molecular bouncers working so that your vital cellular springs can remain tightly compressed. And what happens when the system fails? If you lack the right essential minerals which act as the primary conductors, or if your internal energy production drops significantly, the metaphorical bouncer falls fast asleep. Consequently, sodium rushes uncontrollably into the club while the vital potassium escapes. The cellular spring stretches out completely, and your overall voltage plummets towards zero. At that moment, the engine starts to overheat. It's something that in engineering we call friction. Within the field of modern medicine, it is formally called chronic low-grade inflammation. And this is the metaphorical smoke emanating from an internal engine that is laboring 3 times as hard as it normally should, just to achieve a mere half of the expected result. This pump doesn't just move people in the club. What it's actually doing is charging a biological capacitor. Your cell membrane is technically a capacitor, and minerals are the plates of that capacitor. Without these critical components, your cell is unable to maintain an electrical charge, and the energy rapidly dissipates as residual heat. If you want to stop generating smoke and start generating real voltage, we have to go back and find the original components of the human battery. We have to talk about the sea, and as you travel along this journey, you will encounter 2 monumental historical figures, whom official history deliberately chose to keep obscured. The first is Claude Bernard, the father of experimental medicine. Bernard was not your typical doctor. He was the one who transformed medicine into an exact science, because he put forward an idea that today, nevertheless, is the pillar of preventive health, what he called the milieu intérieur, or the internal environment. Before him, medicine, what it did was look at organs as if they were isolated parts. But Bernard took a step back and asked himself a fundamental question. In what environment do our cells live? And he arrived at the profound conclusion that this very day shall finally return sovereignty to you. He said, "We are not merely beings who live in the polluted air of the bustling city or in the biting cold of winter. Our cells live exclusively in the vital fluids that bathe them. In other words, we are essentially a complex and self-contained, closed biological system that carries its own vast internal ocean." His most famous phrase sums it up, thanks to all our biological freedom. He used to say, "The constancy of the internal environment is the condition for free life." And what does this mean for you? It means that if the water in your internal aquarium is stable and its voltage is correct, you are free on the outside. However, if that balance is broken, you become a slave to disease and the germ finds its way in to find something to hold on to. But Bernard's theory needed someone to take it out of the books and onto the battlefield. And that's where the remarkable Professor René Quinton comes in, a French physiologist with a tenacity reminiscent of Darwin's. Quinton was not a mystic. He was a scientist of extreme rigor who became obsessed with a revolutionary observation. Our human blood is, quite practically speaking, very similar to seawater. In the year 1904, René Quinton published his scientific masterpiece titled Seawater Organic Medium. And through this work, he wanted to prove to the world that we are not simply land animals, but rather we are complex, living aquariums that walk upon the earth. We perpetually carry the vast ocean deep within our bodies, specifically in our plasma and our interstitial fluid, and for our cells to continue swimming in the exact same electrical environment where life was first born hundreds of millions of years ago. This is the fundamental way it remains today. To prove it, he carried out an experiment that left the scientific community of his time completely speechless. In a remarkable experiment, he successfully replaced every drop of blood within a living dog with a carefully filtered and specifically diluted seawater solution, a substance that is known in modern science as isotonic seawater. The world expected the animal to die within minutes. And what happened? On the contrary, after just a few days, the dog was more energetic, stronger, and its wounds healed faster than ever before. And Quinton didn't just stay in the laboratory. With the exact same unwavering conviction that Charles Darwin defended evolution, he steadfastly protected the concept of the biological terrain. The famous marine dispensaries, the Gouttes de lait, where he saved the lives of thousands of children who were dying of cholera and malnutrition in the suburbs of Paris at the time. They weren't given chemical medicines, he simply injected them with his Quinton plasma. And he managed to revive bodies that medicine had already declared dead, simply by restoring the conductivity and balance of the ocean to them. Renowned scientist René Quinton demonstrated quite clearly that if you fix the internal terrain, the fish, which is a metaphor for the biological cell, recovers its health automatically. However, the entire world went somewhat crazy and focused almost exclusively on Louis Pasteur's germ theory. Consequently, we decided as a society to chase after microbes and completely ignore the vital terrain. But in the end, history left us with a beautiful and profound lesson in humility. It is widely said that on his very own deathbed, Louis Pasteur himself finally acknowledged the fundamental truth that Claude Bernard and René Quinton had always defended. And his final words, spoken shortly before passing away, were, "Bernard was right, the microbe is actually nothing, and the terrain is absolutely everything." At the end of his life, Louis Pasteur admitted that if your internal terrain, meaning your voltage and your 92 minerals, is solid and resilient, no invader can bring down the cathedral of the human body. But by the time the world realized it, we had already decided to look the other way. And today, for you to recover your voltage of minus 70 millivolts or even minus 90 millivolts, we are going to return to the teachings of these two geniuses. We're going to stop attacking the fish and start cleaning the water in the aquarium. Let's go. To talk about the raw material that Quinton found in the sea and that we are now going to recover. If we embrace and acknowledge Quinton's profound thesis that our interior is a vast ocean, the subsequent and vital question we must address is, how do we effectively preserve and sustain the quality of that internal water? In a modern world where our food is devoid of essential nutrients and common tap water is effectively dead? Quinton used direct, raw seawater, but nature, in its truly infinite and profound intelligence, designed a much more sophisticated system of storage and concentration. And this is exactly where the absolute primary protagonist of our video today finally comes in, the world-famous Sea Moss, also known as Sea Moss, or by its scientific name, Chondrus crispus. You have probably heard quite a lot about it lately across various social media platforms, but most people still do not fully understand exactly why it is truly so special, from a complex biophysical and scientific perspective. The marine plant known as sea moss is not just an extraordinary and miraculous nutritional superfood on its own. When we examine it from a technical perspective, It is an exceptionally and absolutely brilliant bioaccumulator, a true master of its environment. Think of the ocean as a soup full of loose wires, magnesium, potassium, and sodium ions scattered everywhere. Sea moss acts like a kind of smart sponge that absorbs those minerals from the sea, and most importantly, it integrates them into what we call an organic matrix. Why is this vital for your cathedral? Well, it's very simple. As we've seen, your nightclub bouncer, that is the sodium-potassium pump we talked about, doesn't just look for loose chemical substances. No, the human body doesn't recognize isolated elements very well. It's important to understand this. What your biology looks for are packages of information. Sea moss remarkably contains 92 of the 102 essential minerals that actually make up the entire human body. But what is truly fascinating isn't just that impressive number 92. It is the fact that they are perfectly packaged in exactly the specific way that your biological cells will instantly and naturally recognize. Taking a synthetic magnesium supplement from the pharmacy is like trying to fix a computer by throwing loose pieces of metal at it. Sea moss, on the other hand, provides your internal electrician with the exact copper wire required, featuring the precise thickness and the perfect insulation needed to effectively repair your frayed cables. It is quite literally a source of electric food, fully prepared and ready for your body to use immediately. And by introducing this matrix into your system, what you're doing is giving your cells the raw material so that those springs that have been stretched by stress and poor diet can contract again. Essentially, in other words, you are effectively restoring the vital cellular conductivity that finally allows Michael Levin's biological regeneration software or Jerry Tennant's essential healing voltages to at last begin to run properly throughout the body. But please be very careful. Simply having the essential restorative repair materials at the grand entrance of the cathedral door is not nearly enough. We need to make absolutely sure that the material gets all the way to the very innermost heart of the biological cell. And for that specific purpose, we need a specialized molecular delivery truck that is fully capable of passing through the strictest biological customs imaginable. Always keep in mind that you have already done all the hard work. You have successfully gotten the very best material in the entire world, that organic sea moss, which is naturally loaded with 92 essential minerals for your body. You have all the construction bricks and the electrical wiring positioned right at the grand entrance of the cathedral door. But now, are you facing a complex and daunting engineering challenge? The heavy cell door remains firmly locked and barred. In the field of biology, this phenomenon is referred to as a significant challenge of bioavailability. You can have the essential minerals actively circulating in your bloodstream, but if they can't penetrate through the cell membrane, they're ineffective for your health. They are left out on the street without being able to turn on even a single light inside you. And to solve this last very serious infrastructure problem, we have to travel to the highest peaks in the world. We're going to the Himalayas. There we found a substance that seems like something out of a legend, but is pure geochemistry. The Shilajit. Shilajit is neither a simple botanical plant nor a common geological mineral. It is an extraordinary and potent organic resin that slowly oozes from the ancient mountain rocks after millennia of decomposition of medicinal plants that became trapped deep within the stone. It is literally the pure and highly concentrated distilled strength of the mountain. But why exactly is it the final and most essential piece of our detailed voltage map? Well, it's very simple. Because Shilajit is the most potent natural source of fulvic acid. And this is where we revisit the work of a world-renowned scientist whom I've already mentioned earlier in this series, Dr. Riccardo Macchioni. Dr. Mattioni and his research team at the International Center for Biomedicine in Chile discovered that the substance known as fulvic acid is far more significant than being just a nutrient. Fulvic acid is an intelligent molecular solvent, and in their extensive scientific research on the human brain, they clearly demonstrated that this unique molecule has the remarkable ability to penetrate deep where none other can reach. In addition, other molecules and cellular mechanisms can effectively reach, target, and break down the protein tangles that cause electrical short circuits within our neural networks and neurons. However, in addition to this, throughout the entire rest of your body, fulvic acid plays an essential and critical transport role for your health. It acts as a master ionophore. If I had to explain it to a child, I would put it like this. Fulvic acid is the delivery truck that holds the master key to all your cells. Its molecular structure is so small and powerful that it grabs those 92 minerals provided by sea moss and physically pushes them through the cell membrane until they reach, thank you, the mitochondria, which is your power plant. Without this transporter, much of your investment in health is lost. But with it, you ensure that the voltage is generated inside the cell, which is really where it matters in order to reach those minus 70 millivolts or minus 90 millivolts we've been talking about. But here, you need to pay attention to one more thing. Not everything that shines is Shilajit. Because it is such a valuable substance, the market is filled with many dangerous and deceptive imitations. For it to function effectively as that essential ionic transporter your cathedral requires, you must be absolutely sure to strictly follow these 3 fundamental rules. First, the physical form is the true substance. Always look for high-quality, pure resin extracts. You should completely avoid using powders, capsules, or cheap tablets. They are often nothing more than charcoal or dirt with chemical extracts. You should search for the resin, and that resin should be deeply black, shiny, and have an intense and rich earthy aroma, almost as if it were an organic asphalt. Second, carefully look for the authentic gold-grade seal, and always make sure it comes directly from the high peaks of the Himalayas or the Altai Mountains, and that it clearly specifies gold grade on the label, because that specific variety is the one with the absolute highest concentration of beneficial fulvic acid for your body. Third, the certificate of purity, and this is the point. Non-negotiable. Shilajit seeps out of the rock and can contain heavy metals. A reputable manufacturer must show you the laboratory analysis for heavy metals, that is, lead, mercury, arsenic, among others, for the specific batch they are selling you. And if there is no analysis, there should be no purchase. Your health cannot accept risks. Well, by combining the ocean, the Quinton sea moss, with the earth, Shilajit, what you're doing is closing the circle. You have the raw material and you have the transport. Now you have Levin's blueprint, Tennant's energy, and Bernard's terrain. And now that the technical engineering details have been fully clarified and the comprehensive blueprint is finally laid out before us, it is officially time to set these theoretical books completely aside and move directly into decisive action. The time has come for me to show you how to prepare all of this yourself right at home, so your cathedral can start shining as soon as possible. Let's say, just for a moment, enough with the theory, because we've traveled through labs all over the world to understand the why. But now, let's focus on the how. I'm going to give you the 7 master keys to fill up your voltage tank. And it's important that you don't see them as just simple recipes, because these are engineering protocols to stop your cathedral from losing energy and start accumulating it. To begin with, Organic sea moss gel is your essential matrix of 92 different minerals. Sea moss is your spare parts warehouse, but you have to know how to use it with respect. So first, I'm going to give you the protocol. First, and this is the most important thing, make sure it's wild or organic sea moss. Once you have it, wash it thoroughly with cold water to remove the sand and soak it for 24 hours in filtered water with the juice of 2 lemons. Then blend it with a little clean water until it becomes a smooth gel. The dosage, 2 tablespoons a day. You'll be introducing 92 minerals into your body in an organic matrix that your cells instantly recognize. But please pay close attention right now, because here is a very serious safety warning and I need you to listen carefully. Sea moss is an organic superfood that is extremely rich in iodine. You see, iodine is the essential fuel for your thyroid gland, which acts as your body's internal energy thermostat. If you currently have any thyroid problems such as hyperthyroidism or Hashimoto's disease, or if you are taking specific prescription medication, you must consult your doctor before starting this supplement. This is vital because an already altered system can react to a sudden excess of iodine just like a delicate fuse reacts to a massive power surge. Sovereignty also means responsibility. In the second place, let's discuss homemade Quinton plasma, If you want to obtain Quinton plasma without spending a fortune on expensive pharmacy prices, the absolute best kept secret is to ensure you use the correct type of high quality sea salt. What is the protocol? Forget about refined white salt, which is like a cut wire, and use Celtic salt, Brittany salt, or grey salt. And it has to be moist and greyish. For every liter of water, add between 4 and 6 grams of salt and test your tolerance. Test your tolerance to salt in the water. Keep in mind that your body should receive about 6 grams of salt for every 1 liter of water it consumes. And this includes all the water you take in, fruit, water you get from fruit, coffee, tea, broths, any source. And I'll give you what's called the telegram trick when you're going to use this water. Place a grain of salt under your tongue before drinking the prepared water. This will activate your electrical sensors and send a message to your cells. Attention, a load is coming, open the doors. This is the way to make sure the water doesn't just pass through you but actually enters the cell and hydrates it. For real. Third, biological juices, which are batteries of structured water or ease water. Nature packages living water in perfect containers that have already been filtered and organized by the plant itself. And here you have options that are on one hand electrical. Cucumber is the king because of its balance. But melon, watermelon, and of course fresh natural coconut water are also true biological batteries. Why do they work? Well, it's very clear, because this water is not just H2O, it's crystalline water charged with electrons. And when you consume it on an empty stomach, you're giving your mitochondria a high-fidelity fuel that the body absorbs almost without expending any energy. Cucumber or coconut are not just water. They are the most sophisticated delivery system of potassium and sodium that exists because they come wrapped in the biological information that you carry. The Sodium-Potassium Pump instantly recognizes it. Fourth, we utilize highly concentrated herbal infusions of earth, nettle, and horsetail. If you happen to live far from the sea, the solution lies within the deep, nutrient-rich roots of these plants. What exactly is the fundamental concept behind this? It is actually very simple. To properly extract the essential minerals from nettle or horsetail, a quick, simple 3-minute steeping of tea won't do the job at all. To achieve the best results, we need a highly concentrated infusion. And what exactly does concentrated mean in this context? Well, it essentially means first using a very generous amount of the dried plant material, approximately 3 or 4 large tablespoons per liter of water, and then letting it steep while keeping it completely covered in the water for between 4 and 8 hours. This extended time is what allows the mineral bonds to break and pass into the water in an ionic state. It's a bit like mining the plant to extract its earthly essence. Fifth, the elixir of ferments, brine. This is where biology works for you. What is the protocol? You should never even think about throwing away that precious leftover liquid from your fermented sauerkraut or your delicious homemade pickles. That vibrant, probiotic-rich liquid is essentially pure electric gold for your health. In it, the bacteria have already done the dirty work of breaking the chemical bonds of the minerals and have left them with their active charge ready to jump to your neurons. Taking a small shot of this liquid every day acts as a powerful turbo boost for your connectivity. Sixth, bone broth, which is something like the cement of the cathedral. If the sea gives us minerals, the earth gives us the collagen needed so those minerals don't escape through the cracks. And what is the protocol? The process is actually very simple. Slowly simmer marrow bones over very low heat for a minimum of 24 hours and add a small splash of apple cider vinegar to the pot. The vinegar extracts the minerals from the bone structure, and this broth will repair the voltage leaks in your gut, ensuring the fuel stays inside. And seventh and last, the famous Shilajit, which is the activator of transport. Now that you have successfully selected the right resin for your project, let us carefully connect it to the entire system. What is the protocol? Carefully use the very tip of a traditional wooden spoon, or perhaps the small plastic spatula that usually comes included with the jar. You should take a portion roughly the size of a single grain of rice, or a small pea, which is approximately about 250 to 500 milligrams in total weight. And to prepare it, dissolve it in a glass of warm water, or in your concentrated nettle infusion that I mentioned earlier. But here's something important. The water should never be boiling because excessive heat breaks down the delicate molecules of fulvic acid. Stir until the water turns a dark brown color and is completely translucent. Take it on an empty stomach along with your 2 tablespoons of sea moss gel or with your grain of salt under your tongue when drinking the prepared water. As I mentioned, being an ionophore, Shilajit will capture those 92 minerals you just ingested and physically push them through the cell membrane. It is responsible for making sure the building materials reach the worker in the heart of the mitochondria. That marks the definitive conclusion of the 7 essential protocols. However, it is ultimately quite useless to carefully fill your entire aquarium if you then suffer a catastrophic electrical short circuit caused by excessive environmental stress. You need to discharge the dirty electricity accumulated from living surrounded by Wi-Fi and concrete. And many of you here tell me, but Jose Maria, I live in an apartment on the 10th floor and I can't walk barefoot on the ground because it's too cold, because I'm older, because I'm weak, for whatever reason. But it doesn't matter. Your building has a safety system called grounding. It's a copper wire that runs from your outlets directly into the depths of the planet. All buildings everywhere in the world have it. They all must have it. And so you can use different solutions. The first is the faucet solution. If your building's pipes are metal and the faucet is metal, it becomes a direct conductor to that grounding system. Touching it with wet hands for a couple of minutes will allow the excess positive charge from your stress to leave and for the Earth's electrons to enter. But what if your faucet is made of plastic or resin, or the building's pipes are? Then look for the radiator. If it's metal and the heating pipes are metal, find a spot where the paint is worn off and touch it there. Radiators are part of a metal circuit that is usually connected to the building's grounding structure. But there's another technical option that's easier. There are what are called grounding mats, which connect to the third prong of your outlet, the ground pin. That's the biological plug your cathedral needs to stabilize its minus 70 millivolts. With the mats, you get exactly the same effect. Well, reconstruction is not an act of faith, it's an act of engineering, as you can see. And today I've given you the first tools for your biological sovereignty. You now know what the 92 high-fidelity minerals are, and you know who the master transporter is to get them to the heart of your cell. If you start today with the Sea Moss protocol, Shilajit and mineral salt, your electrical infrastructure will begin to heal. But keep in mind that this current section represents only 30% of the total map. Even having the very best high-quality copper wires is completely useless if the essential insulating fluid surrounding them is effectively dead. For your cathedral to radiate with its own magnificent light, we need to fully complete the system, and we are going to accomplish that in the next two essential and fundamental steps. In the next episode, video 11 of the series, we will decode the code of living water, and I will show you the exact protocol to resurrect dead tap water and transform it into a liquid crystal. And I'll also provide you with the comprehensive and definitive master list of foods that not only provide essential nourishment for your entire body, but also effectively recharge your internal biological battery simply by eating or drinking them. And right after that, in the next video, video 12 of the series, we will close the circle with what I call the triangle of cellular hydration, and there I will reveal how to use the pressure of movement, grounding, and infrared light, so that your energy becomes inexhaustible, no matter if you live in a concrete city or in the coldest, most hidden corner of the world. Do not choose to abandon your journey at this moment, now that you have finally started to illuminate the cathedral within you. The complete map of your vital power is about to be revealed. If you have found the information in this video to be particularly useful and think it could help others, I would be incredibly grateful and would truly appreciate it if you shared it with your community. On one hand, it is about being able to help other people who might need to rekindle their inner spark and find their motivation again. And on the other hand, it is also about spreading valuable knowledge and insights to a much wider audience. Thank you for your support. You already know what I always tell you. Keep moving forward. Always keep moving forward. And I will be sure to read through every single one of your comments.